So, hey, Bobby.
Hey, Scott.
Sorry I couldn't be there for the actual panel discussion, but we're doing this here a little bit before the ELO 2026 conference. And I guess this is sort of a birthday party.
Yes, happy birthday, Sunshine 69, 30 years. And thank you, Scott, for being my interlocutor on this day. Sunshine 69 was the first web-born hypertext novel to call itself a novel. A built-in story space, exported into HTML, integral to the World Wide Web. That's what we're celebrating. The moment the web first imagined a novel in its own language. With Sunshine 69, you can watch a literary form inventing itself. The choices are still visible. The flaws are still visible. The architecture is still there, and every year a new round of readers finds it for the first time.
Yeah, and Story Space was for people who don't know, but I think a lot of people at ELO will, but it was a pre-web hypertext fiction system.
Story Space is a pre-web spatial hypertext writing environment developed by J. David Bolter, Michael Joyce, and John B. Smith, with Mark Bernstein carrying it forward through Eastgate Systems to this day. Less than a year ago, I wrote the living glossary of digital narrative entry on Story Space and interviewed Mark so I could get that lineage exactly right. The idea to publish Sunshine 69 online was lucky timing. That year leading up to it was the first year a version of Story Space was released that exported directly into HTML. Hypertext suddenly wasn't trapped inside specialized software anymore. I wanted the novel to be born where readers already lived. HTML is still here and the novel is still readable 30 years later.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why you're doing this, in addition to sort of having a birthday party, is that you've sort of unearthed an archive
Mhm.
of both sort of your own materials, but things around them. Some Robert Coover, of course, was one of your, or perhaps your main writing teacher at the time that you were writing Sunshine 69. So why don't you take me back there to Brown University? What was it? When did you start this thing? 1994?
The earliest version of Sunshine 69 was titled Altamont with an anarchy symbol standing in for that first letter A. 2 years earlier, that was my MFA thesis at Brown. It was completed in 1994, maybe about a tenth of what the finished Sunshine 69 novel would become. As far as I know, it was the first master's thesis in any department submitted electronically. But the writing itself began earlier in Robert Coover's very first hypertext fiction workshop in January of 1991. By 93, I was already publishing online a zine called Albert Hoffman's Strange Mistake on the 50th anniversary of the first acid trip. It was distributed over FTP servers with Fetch, I remember being a way people would download the Story Space reader. Sunshine 69, it really grew up alongside the web itself. SonicNet serialized it one passage a day from June through December of 96.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wonderful characters in this novel. Many based on real historical figures or kind of shadow historical figures as well. But the Glimmer twins,
Yeah,
who are Rolling Stones,
yeah.
make an appearance. Timothy Leary's in
The
there.
Glimmer twins, Keith and Mick, had missed out on Woodstock a few months prior. And this was the Stones' attempt at restitution, a free concert, their own Woodstock West, staged in December at a stock car speedway on the East Bay. But instead of being peace and love, it became what some still call the death of the 60s.
Yeah, there's what happened at Altamont to begin with, and maybe unfold that.
Let me tell you about what happened in 1969 at Altamont Speedway. While the Rolling Stones performed, Meredith Hunter, an 18-year-old black man, was stabbed to death under the stage lights by Alan Passaro, a Hell's Angel from one of the clubs that Stones management had retained as security. The Hell's Angels motorcycle club paid in $500 worth of beer. Inject on this scene thousands of bad acid trips due to someone who distributed free doses, which many chroniclers of that period say was not LSD at all, but a psychosis-inducing experimental drug developed by the CIA for the purpose of disrupting the anti-war counterculture. So a hit of Orange Sunshine handed to you at Altamont would make you feel crazy enough that you weren't sure it was ever going to end. Meredith Hunter entered my novel. Alan Passaro entered the novel. Alongside them came fictional lives that I created for the sake of the narrative. Norm, the Vietnam veteran. Orange Sunshine, the girl named after the acid, or perhaps it was the acid that was named after her. And then a double agent of a character operating under two aliases, Ronald Stark and Khoury Ali, a goblin winding his way through the crowd at Altamont distributing doses of the adulterated Orange Sunshine. The final character who I gave voice to was Lucifer, who needs no introduction. During spring break, I flew to California and spent hours in Alameda County Courthouse, copying the trial transcript for 5 cents a page. The defense exhibits included a dressmaker's dummy showing every stab wound and the knife itself, still bloodstained. During the summer and fall of '96, the serialization ran a passage a day on SonicNet. It was kind of a small blip on the cultural radar at the time. Then something unexpected happened. Readers began writing into the story. Someone claimed to know Orange Sunshine. Someone else had known Passaro. There was even someone who said she was Meredith Hunter's sister. Suddenly the novel had grown a life outside itself. The guest book has stayed open for more than half of the last 30 years, but server migration has knocked it out for a while, and that's one reason I want to restore the guest book here on the anniversary. The first visitor signed it in '96, and I'd like to see the next generation writing entries. We're also bringing back the 8-track deck, an audio player from the original soundtrack recordings by Will Oldham, Colin Gagan, and myself under the name Bobby Rabbit. The music lived on the site from the very beginning in old real audio files, and now it's being remastered as WAV and MP3. Oh, and the novel toured. I'd set Sunshine 69 running on a projector from a laptop while a big plush mouse, the animal, not the peripheral, was passed through the audience. Whoever held it chose the next link. I called them hyperformances. Kate Hales reminded me that she saw one at DAC, Digital Arts and Culture Conference at Georgia Tech in 1999.
One of the interesting things is in that early story, you actually shaped the text like a bicycle, and you were thinking about this sort of this architecture and different ways that people would navigate a textual space.
Thank you for zooming in on that. The original Altamont title screen is already the novel in miniature. A bright red Anarchy A doubles as a bicycle wheel, sitting on a stretch of blue pavement with a yellow center line and a long black skid mark beneath it. Zoom into the story space map itself and you discover the entire architecture is literally shaped like a bicycle. The rear wheel carries Bobby's childhood. The front wheel carries the Altamont concert. Between them sits a derailleur, not just links, but lexia that can turn a reader's point of view into another gear. Eventually, the bicycle grew into the four-wheeled Sunshine 69 Rambler convertible that's still the splash page today. And the calendar, the Bay Area map, of the suitcase, these are the three main ways in. In Altamont, 10-year-old Bobby Rabbit is a boy haunted by a year he never lived through. He was too young to remember 1969, old enough to inherit its aftershocks. As he keeps brooding over what happened when his older brothers and sisters were his age, he rides deeper and deeper into those histories until He flies off his bicycle in a moment of distraction. After flying off the bike, Bobby's crash becomes a seam into another world of the summer of '69 and Meredith Hunter and other consciousnesses.
And you showed me some documents that I thought were really interesting. Some commentary from Coover, and I know the notes you sent me said like Coover is a co-architect. That was really interesting because like you can tell how invested and how sort of excited in a way Coover got about these hypertexts and helping people to think through what might be like I see some notes here like shouldn't there be a link here?
Yep.
Um, maybe cut this, move this to another space. Think about how you're connecting the authors together.
For as long as I knew Robert Coover, he wanted to read on paper with a pen in his hand. So I printed every passage of Altamont and later Sunshine 69 and literally placed the pages before him. That's why his annotations exist. 3 complete readings, 3 different pen colors, 3 different stages of the work and states of attention. He commented at every scale, from individual words to the overall architecture. One note has stayed with me for 35 years. He said, "You're actually creating an acid trip here with hypertext." At the time, I heard the psychedelic reference, but years later, I realized he's meaning something deeper. He wasn't just describing subject matter, he was identifying a compositional method. The form itself was dissolving boundaries between people, time periods, and perspectives. The architecture was performing the same shifts in consciousness that the prose described.
Shelley Jackson was there right around the same time. And she did, let's see, she did her hypertext starting in, do you remember when her hypertext fictions came out?
Shelley Jackson wrote the first draft of Patchwork Girl for one of George Lando's courses at Brown in '93-'94. Eastgate published it in 1995, the year before Sunshine 69 went up, which means we were in workshop together the first year I was finishing Sunshine 69. Patchwork Girl was developing almost simultaneously. I had also been George Lando's research assistant that summer, updating the Victorian web to HTML.
If we kind of look at it historically now, the moments of web hypertext was relatively brief, in terms of the span of our lives. Although I think a lot of things were taken away from web hypertext, maybe even not only in electronic literature, but into wider aspects of the culture
Hmm.
as the web evolved. Where do you think what became of hypertext?
I've taught a course called Writing Nonlinear more than 20 times over the past 10 years at Southern Oregon. And my students are composing in Twine, free, open in the browser, the direct descendant of what StorySpace started. My students publish to the Interactive Fiction Database and dig through the communities around the IF archive for new ELIT games, and we still use the ELO directory to find the classics. They're gamers, they're D&D players. One student recently said about the Hypertext Hotel that it reminded her of the web before it got overtaken by trolls. The week we recorded this, a note arrived from Sue Coonan, a professor in Iowa who's been teaching Sunshine 69 to college students for 21 years straight. It's her bridge text from print into electronic literature, and she's found even readers who struggle with more open-ended hypertext are, in her phrase, way happier with the organized chaos of Sunshine 69. The calendar, the map, the suits as metaphors and mechanisms. Sue kindly shared her intro lecture slides, which I point to from here. Robert Coover, who died in 2024, used to say he wasn't expecting the great American hypertext novel, but that students in his workshops would approach any writing differently for the rest of our lives. And it's true, everything I wrote after was affected by it, which is why all of my novels are experimental in time, space, point of view. Akashic Books published my first novel, Fast Eddie, in good old book form in the summer of 2001. Every print novel since then has carried the DNA of Sunshine 69. Havana Lunar, I composed like a Rubik's Cube, shifting chapters through time and between points of view right up to the final draft. Don DeMeo of La Plata splices its narrator's voice across registers the way a link splices Lexia. The question remains exactly the same, whether we're talking about HTML or VR, AR, or print. What is a story in this environment? And how do I shape a literary experience for someone? The decisions behind Sunshine 69 exist in exactly three places. The work itself, a dossier here in Oregon, and one living memory that can still explain the relationships.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I mean, I think it's also important to go on, keep inventing, keep creating, keep making new things. But there's also these boxes that you find, right? And like you literally found a box of things at the early development of your work and with a lot of material related to things like where Robert Coover's ideas came up about this. So I think it's so important now too that people like Denis Grigard, the work that she's doing on the next, and I was just talking for her about the Talon Mehmet archive that they're doing there, but that we're finding institutional homes and that we're having these conversations about the early period of electronic literature, so that and hopefully people will study it, learn from it, make more interesting things as a result of engaging with it.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. And cheers to our colleagues in the Electronic Literature Organization for carrying the torch, keeping the flame.
Well, well, I gotta go because I'm in
Yep.
Denmark and it's like time for dinner.
Yeah.
But it's been like really great talking with you, Bobby.
And I'll be having
And
breakfast here in Oregon.
congratulations on outliving the 30th anniversary
Hey,
of
Oh, and here's the strange thing, Scott. Sunshine 69 is now older than I was when I wrote it, for whatever that's worth.
so you're just a spring chicken.
Well put. Thank you, Scott.